Please tell me I am not the only one that had to shed tears when I saw the final part of this episode of RWBY. That scene was sad. It was a really sad scene. It is something that really emphasizes this season of RWBY. I talked about it all last week, of how it's kind of like the fairy tale's over. Even the opening says it, and now it's like a new dark beginning for the series. But that final part of this episode, that was sad. Just think about this, okay? Just think. Jaune as a character, we know he's had this build up since the very beginning. We know he's probably going to eventually become a crazy powerhouse. He's been built up, he's got all this character development over many seasons, and Pyra's death is also, a form of character development for him, accepting her death and overcoming it and becoming stronger. I mean, you know, the shield and sword he's using as well. I mean, just character development in general. But when this man is listening to a recording of Pyra, and he's training even after her death, that's sad, because you gotta realize, for one, Jaune is pushing himself to continue to better himself. He's continuously doing that where he can become a better person, a stronger person, a better leader. And as he's training constantly over and over, you see this drive in his eyes, how he continues to push himself. And you see the sadness, too, in the way his body moves. Like, his entire movement in his body, when you saw how he was training, he was holding his shield up and he was slashing. You saw the sadness. I don't know how Rooster Teeth managed to accomplish that, but they did a very good job with emphasizing emotions throughout the characters in this episode. I mean, it wasn't just Jaune's character, but you had characters like RWBY, you had characters like Weiss, you had characters, you know, from all these other characters like, you know, Ren or Nora, showing emotions the way they reacted or how they were moving around. And you could see the clear step up from the original seasons of RWBY in this season, especially with the way the body movements are done and how the emotions can be displayed like that. I mean, RWBY was always a good series at the beginning, but it did have issues when it first started with showcasing emotions and not looking like it's robotic. I mean, there was a lot of times throughout Season 1 and Season 2 of RWBY, when it first started and, you know, Rooster Teeth was trying to get the hang of it, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the way the characters moved, it might look robotic, or it just didn't have that much emotional weight to it, as if, you know, it had normal type movement, like we see in this episode. So there's a lot of improvements overall, and I just really want to take a moment to compliment Rooster Teeth on all the effort they put into this episode, especially with that finale scene of this episode. I mean, just Jaune sitting there slashing and trying to get stronger, listening to a recording of someone he cares about that's already dead, and then he repeats it and listens to it all again. That's tragic. I mean, it's like constantly replaying a recording of someone you truly love, like a family member, over and over again, and listening to their final words. That's what he's doing. He's listening to her voice, her final words to him, and it's his training. And it's sad because he's constantly repeating that over and over while he's training himself. So, yeah, Rooster Teeth, you definitely nailed it in that this season is going to be dark. It's going to be a hell of a lot more dark than how the previous seasons were done. And to emphasize that, it's not just the Jaune scene that really hits you. It's also the village scene. Now that surprised me. I was really, really surprised to see something like that, especially the death scene of a character that was introduced, the soldier of the village. So, the sad thing is that everything seemed happy-go-lucky at the beginning of the episode. Everything was progressing in a way that seemed like it was kind of a mellow tone, okay? It was mellow, mild, and all that. And eventually, after we had this, like, you know, nice, warm conversation between Jaune and RWBY, we get an image of this village that's completely been decimated. It's completely destroyed. You just see everybody pretty much dead in the village. They go in the village, everybody's pretty much gone or dead or whatever, and they see someone leaning up against a wall that has blood coming out of him. And that blood, I appreciate that, because one thing that's always bugged me about RWBY, it's a minor thing that's bugged me. It's nothing major, but it's just something personally that bugged me throughout, you know, the seasons, was that there was never a lot of showcase of blood. I mean, there was blood maybe here and there, but overall there wasn't, you know, blood ever really shown like what we saw in this episode. So it kind of lets us know that we will see more violence in terms of blood in future episodes. It's not just going to be like punching someone and there's just no blood coming out. You'll actually see blood. So I appreciate that as well, Rooster Teeth. A very good job and very good direction so far, adding in more of that and also showcasing that there is going to be wounds and stuff that appear on characters, especially blood. So yeah, that's a very good step, you know, with RWBY as well for this season. But the guy dies, though, and that's what really just hits you, because you're like, damn, this death. I mean, honestly, I don't truly care about the character that died. I just care about what the emotional impact meant. For instance, what this truly means for our characters, but also RWBY in general, like this entire series. Seeing death like this on episode 2 of season 4, and seeing the way someone died like that in such a sad manner, it lets you know we can expect more things like this throughout the future of RWBY, and there's probably no going back. Like, there's no way we're turning around and going back to a happier time until probably this series ends, which won't be probably for a very long time. So there's no turning around. We're on the, you know, train track of darkness right now for the series, and seeing that, I welcome it. I really welcome this change in the tone of RWBY. Now, looking past that, let's talk about the scene with Ren and Nora. So after this man is killed, okay, he dies, but also after we found out what happened in this village, Ren and Nora, they exchange these looks, and you see in their eyes that there's something going on here. They recognized the symbol that was on the ground, and if I had to kind of place any money on the table, I want to assume this has something to do with their backstory, and I mean, we don't know a lot about them, so there is a potential character development and backstory for these characters in the future of Season 4, which I welcome as well, because I see Season 4 as a season that's more about developing the characters, side characters as well, but also setting up a new goal for the series. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing Jaune get his development and what happened after, you know, Pyrrha's death. We're seeing RWBY going through these PTSD flashbacks, hearing Pyrrha's voice and stuff. I mean, we're seeing stuff going on with Ren and Nora now, and we know that there's probably a potential flashback or backstory coming up very soon for these characters. We have, you know, Wisest right now, what's going on with her, and how she's having to deal with her father, which I'll get into that in a moment. I mean, there's just a lot of, you know, character development and characterization going on in Season 4 already. We're only 2 episodes in, so developing these 2 characters, Ren and Nora, I feel like it's the proper time to do so. I mean, it feels like it's the proper time, because we have these characters going on their own journeys. For instance, you know, RWBY's separated from her normal team, like Blake, Weiss, and Yang. She's not with them anymore, so it allows these other characters that normally didn't have the spotlight all the time to actually have the spotlight and develop, and that's a good thing. You gotta develop your cast. You can't just develop, you know, one character, you know, your main 4 characters. You need to develop everyone. It can't just be, you know, spotlight on a couple of characters. You need to kind of spread it out for we can appreciate the entire world of RWBY. And so the way Rooster Teeth is kind of showcasing this, it shows that they're trying to step up the writing, trying to step up the character development, and also kind of just bring off the spotlight from our main characters, but onto our support or side characters. Now, talking about Weiss, okay, so Weiss, this episode pleased me. For one, Weiss's family. We know Weiss has had some issues with her family for a long time. She's kind of been disconnected for the most part. We know the way she's, you know, reacted or acted throughout her journey of the previous seasons. Now, we get to see her family firsthand. Where she lives, her home, her father, her surprising brother, and we get to see a glimpse of her mother. So, Weiss's mother is not dead, but we see a family portrait. Now, this is the one scene that really stood out to me besides the RWBY and Jaune scene. The portrait of Weiss's family. If you look very closely at the portrait, you will see the 3 kids. You see the younger brother, you see Weiss, and then you see Winter. You see these 3, but you also see the parents. You see Weiss's mother and father. Now, if you look very closely at the picture, you will see Weiss's father smiling, like he seems like he's happy. If you look directly down below him, you see the brother of Weiss smiling as well. But if you look at the 3 females in the portrait, the 2 sisters and the mother, you see how their faces show either sadness, terror, or just anger. Just, you know, very negative emotions. And this really kind of showcases what type of family Weiss is a part of, and what life she probably lived at a very young age, and also what type of character Weiss's father is, and also her brother. And let's just talk about Weiss's brother for a second. Weiss's brother's character surprised me, but also scares the fuck out of me for one reason. This is a type of character I can't really peg and understand what he's truly thinking at this time, because the way he was introduced, He seems like that type of character that would be stuck up, feels like he's better than everyone else. That's kind of the impression I thought I was going to get, or I still might kind of have right now. But, I mean, I thought that's what type of character he was going to be. For instance, he's going to be stuck up, thinking he's better than Weiss, you know, just acting all proud, like, you know, a normal person would do. Like, you know, a noble, someone that's rich and stuff, that's, you know, part of a rich family. That's what I thought would probably happen. But I can't peg him as that, because his personality showed that he had sympathy for Weiss. It seemed like he kind of cared, and Weiss was even surprised about this, because maybe in the past he did act like an asshole and proud and thought he was better than everyone, but with his personality now, he doesn't act like that. It seems like he's leveled out and kind of toned down his attitude, probably to what he was in the past, and Weiss was surprised, which begs the question, what is really going on here? Is this man putting on an act? Is he putting on an act to get on Weiss's good side, or is he doing something else behind the scenes that we're unaware of that could be absolutely evil, or is he really made a new leaf and he's actually kind of a good brother? I have a lot of questions about this because the type of character he is right now, we don't really know. We don't know what side he's on, if he's really a good person, a bad person. Whatever it may be, though, it seems like he's probably the one that's been favorited by the father. If you look at the family portrait, and if you look at how rich families are done throughout history, you can kind of peg of what's going on here. For instance, most likely, Weiss's father probably treated his son, his only son, with a lot of respect and favoritism, because it's his son, it's his heir. And I mean, if you've seen a lot of, you know, historical type stuff about this, you know usually the sons get better treatment than, you know, the princesses or, you know, the daughters, because the son is like the rightful heir of the company or kingdom, whatever, and they usually get treated properly. And when you think about all of this, most likely that's why the boy was smiling in the portrait, because his father spoiled the hell out of him, and he's like his daddy's son. Now, that's exactly what he is, and maybe that's why Weiss didn't like him at the time, or why she thought he would have been an asshole, because that's probably how he was in the past. But then we move over to the next character, because that's all we know really right now for Weiss's brother. I don't know what side he's on, I don't know if he's made a new leaf, but let's move on to the next character, which is Weiss's father. So Weiss's father, everything I kind of expected him to be. I mean, I knew he was probably going to be an asshole. I kind of sensed it throughout the journey of RWBY. But seeing him firsthand with the way he, you know, acted towards Weiss and displayed himself with his mannerism, the way he was just moving around his body, you could just peg this guy as a manipulative asshole. He seems like someone that loves to use people to further his own gains. And that's exactly what he did in this episode. You see an argument going on, and eventually one thing leads to another, to where Weiss walks into the room, she kind of interrupts, and this man starts off like, oh, did you forget your manners when you were away? And then Weiss like, no, I didn't. And then eventually the conversation turns to how right now Atlas is facing an issue. Atlas is facing an issue to where they can't sell their dust. They can't sell it, and they can't make any money. So the big company that Weiss's father runs can't make money. They're not allowed to trade out of the country, which means that he can't, you know, continuously get rich. And eventually he comes around to saying like, hey, Weiss, we need to do a charity. I'm thinking of doing a charity, and I'm thinking I'm going to make you sing. I think you need to sing for the charity. And Weiss asks a question like, do you want me to sing? Like, is this, you know, being forced upon me? Or can I choose not to? And eventually he's like, I think it'll make everyone happy if you sung. So pretty much he's saying like, yes, you better fucking sing. That's what Weiss's father was saying. And if you look at this, Weiss's father is trying to use her as if she was a tool, a political stunt, so to say, or something to further his popularity amongst the people, because this is something some companies like to do. I mean, let's just take a moment to think about this, okay? The reason why the man wants to do a charity in the first place after his dialogue with Weiss is because he wants everybody to think he's a good person, a very good man. He wants someone or everyone to think he's a good person because he's trying to help everyone out, offering a charity to everyone, and he's using his daughter, which was already a part of it to begin with, as a political tool for he can further his goals, but also gain popularity for more people will buy his products and just respect his company. So he's using his daughter to make more money, which is really fucked up. If you take a moment to think about it, it's very fucked up. So this father is not really a good father at all, especially the way he treated his daughter in this episode. So that's about it when it comes to this episode of RWBY. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How'd you all feel about this week's episode? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? How'd you feel about everything that happened? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please be safe. Chibi out.